The curse of the lighthouse had always been a whispered legend in the coastal village, a chilling tale told to frighten children and caution sailors. But for Lily Andrews, an investigative journalist with an unyielding thirst for the truth, it was more than just a story. It was a professional obsession and a personal calling. She arrived in the desolate, windswept town with a singular purpose: to uncover the secrets shrouded in the mist surrounding an ancient tomb and the ominous lighthouse that stood sentinel beside it. The village itself seemed caught in a time warp, its salt-stained buildings and weathered inhabitants holding on to secrets as tightly as the ocean clung to its shores. Lily's investigation immediately led her to Mason Cole, a local historian whose family had lived in the village for generations. Mason was a man who lived and breathed the town's history, his knowledge of its folklore and forgotten tragedies as deep and murky as the waters that crashed against the cliffs. When Lily revealed her own connection to the place, that her ancestor, Elias Andrews, was the last keeper of the lighthouse before his inexplicable disappearance, Mason's professional interest sharpened into a shared, vested mission. He explained that Elias' vanishing was intrinsically linked to the tomb and the haunting curse that had plagued the area for centuries, a dark cloud that never seemed to lift. Together, they formed an unlikely but determined partnership, a journalist seeking a headline and a historian seeking to preserve the past, both unknowingly stepping into a narrative far more dangerous and personal than they could have ever imagined. Their journey began not with dusty archives, but with the creaking, decaying structure of the lighthouse itself, a silent monument to countless lost souls, and a gateway to the horrors that lay dormant nearby. Their initial exploration of the lighthouse was an unnerving descent into a forgotten world. Every creak of the floorboards and every gust of wind whistling through the cracked panes of glass seemed to whisper of past sorrows. The air was thick with the smell of salt, damp stone, and something else, something ancient and cloying. As Lily and Mason ascended the spiraling staircase, they found Elias Andrews' old logbook, its pages brittle and stained with seawater. The entries started with mundane observations of tides and weather, but slowly descended into a frantic scrawl of fear and paranoia. Elias wrote of a malevolent presence, a guardian spirit bound to the nearby tomb that had begun to torment him. He described an oppressive feeling of being watched, of disembodied whispers carried on the sea breeze, and of a relentless tolling bell that only he could hear. The logbook detailed the spirit's connection to the tomb, a sacred burial ground that predated the village itself. According to Elias's research, the spirit was an ancient guardian tasked with protecting a sacred relic, an artifact that had been disturbed when the lighthouse foundation was laid centuries ago. This disturbance had awakened the spirit and unleashed the curse, binding it to the lighthouse and the land. As they delved deeper into the lighthouse's forgotten corners and cross-referenced the logbook with Mason's historical maps, the supernatural events Elias described began to manifest around them. Doors slammed shut in empty corridors, shadows danced in their peripheral vision, and a faint, melancholic chime began to echo from the lantern room above, a sound that sent a cold dread seeping into their bones. The line between history and horror blurred, and they realized they were no longer just investigating a story. They were living it. The lighthouse was not merely a structure of stone and glass. It was a vessel for a restless, ancient anger. The evidence from the lighthouse drove them to the inevitable, terrifying next step, the ancient tomb. Nestled precariously on the cliff edge, its entrance partially obscured by overgrown thorns and weathered rock, the tomb radiated an aura of profound dread. Prying open the heavy stone door, they were met with a blast of cold, stale air that carried the scent of earth and decay. Inside, the darkness was absolute, a suffocating void that seemed to swallow the beams of their flashlights. The walls were covered in strange, eroded carvings depicting a powerful spirit. a vengeful guardian figure, and a recurring motif of a lighthouse beam intersecting with a sacred object. As they navigated the labyrinthine passages, the paranormal activity escalated dramatically. Whispers slithered from the shadows, their voices speaking in a long-dead language that Mason partially recognized from his studies of local lore. They spoke of trespassers, of a broken pact, and of a stolen treasure. Lily felt an icy touch on her shoulder and spun around to find nothing but empty space. Mason's flashlight flickered and died, plunging them into terrifying blackness until he could frantically get it working again. It became terrifyingly clear that the guardian spirit Elias had written about was very real, and it was not pleased with their intrusion. The entity's presence was a palpable weight, a crushing pressure that sought to drive them mad with fear. They were no longer just observers. They were participants in a centuries-old conflict, trespassers in a sacred place that had been violated long ago. Their quest for answers had led them into the very heart of the curse, and the guardian's spectral rage was now focused squarely upon them. The tomb was not just a resting place. It was a prison, and the spirit was its eternal, wrathful warden. Deep within the tomb's central chamber, they found the source of the curse's power. There, on a stone altar, lay a skeletal hand clutching a tarnished silver locket, but the relic depicted in the carvings, a crystal prism known as the Sea Heart, was missing. According to Ilias's final, desperate log entry and the legends Mason now recalled with chilling clarity, the Sea Heart was the key. It was a sacred relic designed to channel and appease the guardian spirit, meant to rest within the lighthouse's lantern room, its light acting as a beacon for both ships and souls. When the lighthouse was constructed, the builders had unwittingly removed the Sea Heart from the tomb, placing it within the lantern as a decorative prism, ignorant of its true purpose. This act of desecration had severed the connection, enraging the guardian and trapping its spirit in a state of perpetual torment, bound to both the tomb and the lighthouse. To break the curse, they had to retrieve the Sea Heart from its place in the lantern room and return it to the altar in the tomb, finally restoring the ancient pact. It was a race against time, with the spirit's attacks growing more violent and direct. The tomb itself seemed to conspire against them, with shifting walls and illusory passages designed to trap them forever. Their only hope was to brave the spirit's fury one last time, ascend the haunted lighthouse, and reclaim the artifact that held the key to pacifying the ancient entity. The mission was no longer about uncovering a secret, but about survival and correcting a mistake made centuries ago, a mistake that had cost Lili's ancestor his life and had held the entire village in a grip of fear. The path to salvation was clear, but it was fraught with the spectral dangers of a deeply wronged and powerful spirit. With the storm of the spirit's rage swirling around them, Lily and Mason fought their way out of the tomb and back to the lighthouse. The ascent up the spiral staircase was a harrowing ordeal, with the guardian spirit manifesting in its most terrifying form, yet a swirling vortex of shadowy energy and agonized screams. It threw objects, created phantom drops in the stairs, and filled their minds with visions of drowning in the cold, dark sea. But they pushed on, driven by desperation and a sliver of hope. Reaching the lantern room, they found the Sea Heart, just as the logbook described, refracting the dim light with an ethereal, mournful glow. Prying it from its housing, Lily felt a surge of energy, a mixture of sorrow and rage, coursed through her. They descended with the relic, the spirit's presence dogging their every step, its wails echoing the crashing waves of the real storm that had begun to batter the coast. Back in the tomb, they placed the Sea Heart back onto the stone altar, completing the ritual. For a moment, a brilliant, calming light filled the chamber, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. The whispers ceased, the shadows receded, and a profound silence fell over the tomb. The guardian spirit, finally at peace, dissipated like mist in the morning sun. They had succeeded. Exhausted but relieved, They sealed the tomb and stepped out into the raging tempest, believing they had finally broken the curse and brought peace to the tormented land. Though they succeed in banishing the guardian spirit and sealing the curse, the victory feels unnervingly hollow as the fierce storm continues to rage with unabated fury, its winds howling like a vengeful banshee. Standing on the cliffside, drenched and trembling, Lily and Mason watch the churning, black ocean, the brief sense of peace already beginning to fray at the edges. Suddenly, a sound cuts through the roar of the wind and waves, a sound that freezes the blood in their veins, the deep, resonant toll of the lighthouse bell. It rings out once, twice, a mournful, beckoning chime that carries an ancient and terrible weight. They look up at the lighthouse, its beam cutting through the torrential rain, and a horrifying realization dawns upon them. They had pacified the guardian, but they had not broken the curse of the lighthouse itself. The structure was more than just a beacon. It was a predator, an entity with its own insatiable hunger. It had merely used the spirit as a lure. Now, with the guardian gone, the lighthouse continues to call out for new victims, seeking new keepers to trap within its stone walls and its endless spiraling grasp. The curse remains unbroken, the threat has only changed its form, and the ominous tolling of the bell is a chilling promise that the ancient evil still lingers, waiting patiently for its next soul.